Greetings. Thanks for joining us. This is Live with Miami's Community Newspapers, and I'm Michael Miller. Today we have our panel. We're going to be discussing the South Miami election results. Our guests today are Brad Cassel, Steve Cody, Pedro Diaz, and off camera we have newly re-elected Commissioner Josh Liebman and Mayor-elect Sally Phillips. Welcome. So we're going to start with you, Bradley. So what do you think of the results, and why was the mayor's election, Sally Phillips, so successful?
First, I didn't see much of a presence of her. Okay, of her. I didn't get many mailings. I don't know why it was successful, unless it was Phillips Stoddard getting on the phone and calling all his friends on a regular basis, which is what he did that made him so successful in previous years.
Candidates and politicians and friends endorsing their friends and associates is a pretty common thing. Don't you think so, Stephen?
Oh, yeah. I mean, in a town this size, especially where you only had, 2,700 people show up?
2,100.
2,100, sorry. Word of mouth is the best tool. After that, probably Facebook and a local publication like you put out. TV stations don't care. Miami Herald will do something at the end of the process, but there's no ongoing coverage. So, low tech, high touch is certainly something that's going to get results.
And you've been active in politics, and a few years ago you were the gentleman that sued Miami-Dade County and created districts.
I did, and also the school board.
Right. And the school board, from what I recall, they sort of acquiesced in the middle of it.
Well, yeah, they gave up after I took the deposition of their expert. And after giving a rather blistering report going against what my expert said, I found out that expert, who was a dean out at FIU, put his name on every paper that any of his graduate students published. So I was able to show that, well, here's a paper where you said exactly what my expert said, and here's one that you said what neither of them said.
And so using and having friends endorse people is pretty common. I mean, that's what testimonials are about. So there were quite a few of them. I remember seeing them on cards, and Pedro represented candidates for
Mark
mayor,
Lago.
Mark Lago,
yes.
Getting support of friends, and obviously Phil and Bob Welch supported this particular candidate. Sally, who served many years volunteering. But back to you, Brad. So why did it work so much? The second place people got 450 votes. Sally got in the 700s, 739 votes. That's a gigantic difference.
It's a gigantic difference, but when you have the former mayor picking up the phone and calling up Michael Miller and saying, Mike, we need you to get over to vote today, and we need you to vote for Sally Phillips, okay, it makes a difference. And I've seen him in the past, and he gets on that phone and knocks down calls, and he can be persuasive sometimes.
Yes, and Bob Welch, who's been active supporting people and campaigning against people as well over the years, he didn't have anybody that ran against him. And Bob, knows how to campaign and did a pretty good job with that. And the mayor, anticipating what he sees as the vision for the city, supported the candidate that he thought it would be the best. And he did say, Pedro, I think that you remember saying, my second choice would be, said the mayor,
Mark.
Would be Mark. Okay. So let's talk about Mark for a second. The second time he's run, all right, first time he came pretty close.
Yeah.
This time there were 5 candidates that were running. First of all, have you spoken to him this morning?
I did speak with him this morning. I did talk to him and his wife. They're doing good. Unfortunately, it was not the results that we expected. But, you got to continue moving forward.
And you've been involved in a lot of campaigns because that's part of the work that you do.
That's what we do.
So would you say that this campaign was a fair campaign? Do you think there were people that went overboard? You think it was good? What's your feeling about that?
I think that this was a very clean and good campaign, much better and much cleaner than it was last go around. I think it was fair. Now, the only thing I do have to say is you're talking about just under 66% of the voters, voted against the actual mayor-elect. 65.98%, which is a total of 1,400 voters. The problem here, I do agree with Brad The mayor does have some type of, he still has a nice stronghold here in South Miami, but that was not really what made this election. This election was really this group of candidates, basically the Hispanic candidates, just dividing votes amongst themselves. You're talking about should one of these other Hispanics not been in the race? And I know that there were several other activists speaking with other Hispanic candidates saying, listen, step out, run for commissioner, we could help you, so on and so forth. The results would have been completely different. Should former mayor Falou gotten out of the race, we would have gotten an additional 495 votes, putting Mark up at 978 total votes. Should Miss Sierra gotten out of the race, that would have been an additional 380, put us up at 863. The numbers are there. It's just that people wanted to become mayor.
So one of the things that we think that we're each, that we're not bigots, we're not racist, we're not anything, that we're
Yep.
going to vote for the candidate that's the best candidate. And I often use the example, if there were two neighbors that lived next to each other, one was black and one was white, they're both members of the same country club, they both went to law schools, and their kids went to the same school, and they worked for the same big law firm. At the end of the day, who would you vote for? And what we see is very tribal oriented, which is I'm going to vote this way and I'm going to vote this way.
100%.
Sometimes without qualifications. It's just the way that it is.
Well, I mean, if you remember back when Maurice Ferre ran for mayor, one of the things that was said on Spanish radio was, in Spanish, Cuban vote Cuban, because Maurice was Puerto Rican. In the lawsuits that I did, I found that, and this is going back into the 70s, we had a shifting coalition that would show up, so that when a black candidate ran, he'd get overwhelming support in the black community, usually, but the white and Hispanic voters wouldn't support, and the same when you had a Hispanic, blacks would vote against that candidate and make a coalition with the white candidates. That's shifted somewhat as we become a majority Hispanic voting population here in Dade County. But I've not had a chance to do the numbers, but I would bet you that if I ran the same kind of statistical analysis that I did in those lawsuits, that you would find that there is ethnically polarized voting here in the city of South Miami.
One of the things, before I forget, one of the things that we were advocating was a woman to run, and particularly a Hispanic woman, and better she should come from the North End. So now we have the same. We have a woman that's on the council, on the commission for the first time in a while, right? But the ethnicity is exactly the same. It's so counter to everything that's going on in Dade County. So my question is, what's going to happen to help that change down the road, so that the people that are serving are more representative of the people in the community? Because if it happens again, where people say, I want to run, and then we have 3 Hispanics that want to run, the same thing just might happen again.
And it will.
So
Yeah.
what has to occur for to be more have more diversity?
Well, I think right now you've got 3 of the present commissioners all live on the same street with the mayor. And so you don't have a whole lot of geographic diversity. I think Josh lives not on that street.
He's the first one in over 20 years to
Right.
be elected on that part of
That
town.
part of town, right. And so if you went to, let's say, going to residence districts, at least you would force, and that's what we had in Dade County for a very long time, you would force people to live in different areas and at least be aware of the problems. A better thing perhaps might be going to single-member districts, and an even better thing might be single-member districts and moving the election out of this low turnout, lullative period. I mean, we're going to be having a primary here in Florida on March 17th. Why this election couldn't have waited until then, when you're going to have a whole lot of turnout.
Yes, and Brad,
Yeah,
you've
just so you know, Monroe County already sent out their mail-in ballots. I mean, they're already starting the process down there for
you've lived in South Miami for how long?
35 plus years.
On the north end of South Miami on 62nd Avenue, correct me if I'm wrong, you could drive down the street, and there could be 3 or 4 houses that are in South Miami, the next 3, 4, 5 houses are county, then some more city, then this huge gap of county, and over in the corner, more towards 63rd or 4th in South Miami. I hope that this new commission does something to involve those people. That may include annexation, right? Or get board appointments so that each of the areas of town are represented.
Yeah, and one of the problems we had even with the elections department when Renee Gim ran is somebody in the elections department, in case, squared that off and cut off a chunk of houses in case that were actually in South Miami, and they appeared on no lists for candidates. They got no mailings. They got one card, I think, from the county, and then when they went in to vote, okay, they weren't on the list.
I was talking to a policeman. He said, "You know how he jokingly was smiling. He said, you know how we tell up north on the north end who's in South Miami? We look at for the garbage cans,
Yeah.
and we know,
Yeah.
right? I guess it's true,
No, it is true.
Yeah.
right? So the question at hand is, what about getting more people involved up there? What about some annexation up there? Now there is an annexation movement going on right now. The movement to try to include parts on the south end, which is on Snapper Creek and some areas back there. It's been ongoing for about 6 or 7 months. That's all well and dandy. It needs to be on that end too, right?
Right.
Because that will help it become more diverse. Socioeconomically, it is different, right? And that we need to give people a chance to serve over there. And so I hope that the new candidate, the mayor, and the current ones go out of their way to get people that don't live on 64th Court or 65th Court. It is an amazing phenomenon to watch how that has occurred. It has been that way for 25 years.
Well, what you're going to have to do, though, is to make sure that if the city wants to annex, you first got to convince the county commission,
Yeah.
and then you got to woo the people who live in the area you're bringing in, because if they don't agree to it, it's a great idea, but nobody's going to allow that to happen. So it's almost got to be, a seduction of those voters to say that living in South Miami is going to benefit you because, and then fill in the blanks. And given some of the problems that you had during the final few years of the Stoddard administration, that's left a bad taste in some people's
And
mouths.
recently, as far as annexation, Little Gables failed, High Pines failed, West Kendall was killed by Joe Martinez, commissioner there. Dennis Moss's district failed. Hollywood Oaks, as far as being a new city, failed. And so when I look at it, then perhaps what the county needs to do is give some financial incentives to those nearby areas in the form of, I guess, tax reductions, and say, if you'll agree, one of the things that are going to be in the pot, because you have this donut hole over there, this is what the county can do. And along that level, about how do you induce or seduce the people coming in, I don't know. Because what else do you need to do to Little Gables for them to get them into Coral Gables, where the value of their property would have gone up?
It would, but you got to remember that Coral Gables is a community that regulates your life almost to the degree that they do in North Korea. If you want to repaint your house, you've got to take swatches down and get them to look at them and say, does this, meet our requirements?
We have that in South Miami.
Oh, you do?
Yes, we
Oh.
do. We have an approved.
All right, so I shop at Home
now.
Depot. I know it's hard to imagine, but at the Home Depot I go to, they've added 4 or 5 more pods of self-checkout with even the handle thing to make it easier for people to want to go there. So maybe what this administration needs to do, and these elected officials, is make it so wonderful and make it seamless and make it friendly so people won't have to keep hearing about the nonsense that for decades have gone on over there. And the old people that have been here for a while understand that, so
Well-
it's going to take something to move that.
I think that, Pedro's been involved in messaging for years. I think the messages you need to get out to those people are, your taxes aren't going to go up, but your services are going to get better. So you're going to get something for free. And that makes everybody's heart just jump with joy. If you tell them, yeah, you're going to be part of our city, you're going to be diluted, it's going to cost you more, and you know what? Because the way we've got the fire stations laid out in the city, it's going to get longer for someone to come put out your burning house. That's not a message that's going to resonate with people.
And as far as messaging, do you know if the city has any public information officer that disseminates good things that the city's doing?
I don't believe. I think you need to call into the department in case where you want the information from, and then depend upon somebody sitting there in case that might know the code. And
Pinecrest has it, Coral Gables has somebody, Palmetto Bay, Cutler Bay, Homestead, all right, Aventura, Sunny Isles, City of West Park and Broward, Miami Gardens, all right, Miramar, and I'm sure there's a whole bunch of other cities where they can send the message of that and introducing people, and so they see who the city manager is and try to induce them to feel good about that. And maybe the new administration there, the current city manager is leaving in May, all right, and the new one, I'm not quite sure it's going to be. There's an in-house favorite. Maybe it's going to be her.
no, she has a contract.
Okay. Oh, terrific.
She's
all right.
going to be there.
So maybe they can figure out how to get somebody on staff that can send out that good news to make those people
Well, Josh
feel better.
already started that with revamping the website. I mean, you can now sign up, and you can now sign up for a number of things from the city, but the city doesn't do an email communication to you. Okay, in other words, I'm signed up to see what bids are going out. So I get every time it comes out, I get an email. Okay, they're looking. Let's see, I think they're looking for a lifeguard this morning.
So if the current mayor-elect was sitting in front of you, which she is right off camera, what would you tell her you'd like to see her look at?
I'd like to see the website used as a communication tool to the city. They've already got, well, at least my email address, and it needs to be communicated to the, and it needs to be used by the city to, They have events, at the pool. I don't get any information on events at the pool. They have events in other parts of the city. I don't get any communication on that. Whether I would show up or not, might be a different point. But these are things that need to be, promoted.
And one of the things we've recognized, sometimes it matters if people read it, but what's more important is they see the headline, which is, hey, this is what the city is doing, isn't it good? Now, Lena Sierra, very nice lady. I met her a couple months ago, and she was coming along very well. She was fourth, if I recall.
Mm-hmm.
All right, what do you think happened? You're the pro.
I can tell you what happened.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead, Brad.
I
Tell
can
us.
100 because I had conversations with her, and she would go out and she'd tell me on a Wednesday, I just hit 100 houses. I walked 100 houses, and I said yes. And how many people did you talk to? And she said 3. Okay, and I'm going, well, but you need to reach more than 3 people if you're going out there. I mean, you just can't leave a flyer on somebody's front doorstep, expect them to pick it up, have an epiphany, and go, "This is my new candidate for mayor." And I think that's where she blew it.
Okay, and what's your thought?
There were really only 2 candidates in this race that were campaigning. One of them was Mark Lago, and the other one was Phil Stoddard. That's what happened.
Okay.
That's what happened to Lena Sierra. That's what happened to any of the other candidates. Not many people knew exactly that there were elections going on, aside from the signs or calls or anything like that. I believe that once people got to the polls and saw the ballot and saw familiar names, somebody that's been there in office before, that kind of drew some votes to that particular person. That's what happened.
Okay. Rank does have its privilege, and people understand that. And although the mayor-elect Phillips, she had not served in elected office,
Yep.
but was on TV a lot, served on many committees. We'd like to move on to Commission Group 2, which was Josh Liebman, Levi Kelly, and Cindy Franz. So Levi Kelly got 609 votes, which is about twice as many that he's ever received before.
But where did you get them from? Which districts?
Right there.
I just happen to have that here.
Okay.
Okay, District 621. Okay, he had.
And how did that
52% of the
happen? He
vote.
got twice as many votes.
Well, I don't know where these districts are. So if you have any clue where District 621 is,
Yeah, I believe that's the CRA.
All right.
that's the CRA district. Well, he took that handily. I think every other.
But what happened this time? That he got almost twice as many votes. He had 285, if I remember right, 325 before.
I think the commission move to not push forward the CRA might have created a certain amount of disinformation that he might have been able to use to get people to come out to vote.
Okay. If I remember right, Commissioner Walter Harris group, I call it his group because I think that it was his group,
Yeah.
was anti-Josh, pro-Levi Kelly,
Right.
and pro-Horace,
Horace.
right? So could we look at this and say if the most Levi ever got before it was 300, that Walter's group was able to grab 300 people? Is that some analysis you could do, or is that not a connection?
I don't think
Well,
so.
Okay.
but I think that you also have to see how active was Bob in campaigning. Just the fact that you say to someone, I've got his endorsement, if he's not out there actively, being in video spots, being, willing to have his picture on an endorsement card that you mail out to people. In an election like this is an area where, again, low information, coattails are not very long. So the fact that even that Phil Stoddard liked someone doesn't necessarily mean that, uniformly. You look at the precincts for the mayoral election. Lena Sierra won two of the smaller precincts. The mayor-elect won, I think, 2 of them, and then there was just a smattering of votes on the other 3. And it's just a matter of how those votes rolled in. But I don't think that this is a sign that Bob was, somehow behind-the-scenes mastermind.
Okay, and what's your take?
No, we're still with Levi Kelly. And
Yes.
Got it. Yeah, so, Horace always does very well in the 621 with the CRA. I believe that he brought out his base, and that's, kind of what helped Levi Kelly as well.
Good point, which sort of slipped my mind as well.
Yeah.
Now, Bob Welch, is this his 3rd term?
Yes.
His
This
third
is
term.
final term.
His final term, and he will serve 12 years if he fulfills the rest of it. No one ran against him. Did anybody run against him last time?
No. He ran for the last time.
So here's a guy, we would finally call him Bicycle Bob, because he was known for taking his bicycle around and passing out black and white flyers to people and influencing elections. So nobody thought that they could take him on.
I could tell you for a fact that there was somebody in that mayoral race that knew that they could have beat Bob Walsh. Bob Walsh would have lost, and we would have had a new mayor and a new commissioner in South Miami.
And the reason they chose it whatever way it was why?
It's the mayor's seat.
Ego.
Yeah.
It's the ego of standing up there with the gavel.
There was polling done that Bob Walsh would have been defeated by this other person, this other individual, and the polling would have been the same exact thing for the mayor's race as those numbers I mentioned before, and you'd have a brand new mayor with no ties to the past administration, and you'd have a brand new commissioner.
Bob, as you know, has been one of the greatest self-promoters at South Miami, other than Julio Urbina. All right. And yesterday, Bob was sitting out there. He does his usual election in the median strip right in the middle of Sunset Drive with his big floppy hat and his signs. Right. You got to have a lot of courage to do that, and for all day long. And you have to have a lot of strength to be able to do that. I'm sure he's at home with an IV rehydrating himself. So my compliments to Bob for winning. So let's talk about the charter audited term limits.
The charter amendment. This is the first positive charter amendment that's been made in years. Most of them have been, I think, negative. Okay, we're going to 5 for 5, in zoning changes and things like that. What this did, okay, is we were limited to a 3-year term for an auditor. And what would happen is, okay, is you get an auditor that would come in, he'd learn the basics the first year, and most of the time he lost money. The second year, okay, he'd start to get rolling, okay, and the third year he'd finally be able to put out a half decent product, okay, and get in depth. When we went out for bids, we only got probably 5 or 6 bids from auditors because nobody wanted to take that 3-year bid. What we made the recommendation to do, okay, was to go to either 6 or 7 years, and Phil decided, okay, on the 6 years. But at least this way, okay, you get an auditor in there, and they know who the people are. They know where all the nooks and crannies are, and as they go, year after year, okay, they get deeper into those nooks and crannies, which haven't really been, inspected in, almost ever. And what this will also do is because this auditor is not going to probably have to lose money in their first year, it'll probably drive the cost down of the auditors. So it was a great thought.
And how did this get promoted?
How did this get I got on the phone with people, okay? I'm sure Phil, if anybody asked Phil, I got phone calls, okay, what is this and what should I do? And I told them, I said, vote for it, okay, it's a good thing. And that's all they wanted to hear.
So back to the length of the term of the agreement, it's sort of like, in a simplistic form, the yard guy comes out and he says, listen, do your yard, I'm going to charge you $250 the first time, and after that it's going to be $200, because you know that when you first go in, it's going to be a problem, and after that, people sort of figure it out. I happen to agree totally with that, to make it worthwhile that people want to do it. So let's go over again. So Bob won. Nobody ran against him. Josh, 1,100 votes, 1,136 to be exact. Levi Kelly, the most votes ever, 609.
One second. How did Cindy Franz get 311 votes?
Good point.
I mean, I have no clue who she is. If she came up to me and shook my hand right now, okay, I have no clue who she was.
Well, we can make all sorts of conclusions. What do you think?
She must have called her friends and family, knocked on doors.
Okay. And let's talk about Bruce. Bruce, first time at bat, Bruce Baldwin. He's a practicing attorney, lives in the Shops of Sunset. His office is right across the street. He's at that new sort of look where you go, all right, live, work, and shop in that area. So he got 75 votes, which was miraculously low. I mean, I don't know if we've ever seen anything like that.
I think so, and I think what I know from people talking to people on my block was he went out. I don't think he had a list. I think he went knocking door to door, and I know people, okay, that were not registered to vote on my block, okay, that he spent time talking to them, and that to me is when you're running a campaign, you can't afford to waste that 10 minutes here and 10 minutes there. You need to be talking to people that are going to vote.
Well, I think he's got the bug. What do you think about a new guy coming in and he's tried it out and ran for mayor? It takes a lot of guts to do that first time out.
Well, I think that hopefully he learned a lot. Hopefully Lena learned a lot. I talked to her for a while when you had one of the pastelitos and cafe things, and very, very bright young woman. And hopefully next time she gets someone with the experience that Pedro has to run her campaign. But I think it's great that anybody decides to put themselves up and put themselves out, and they're to be congratulated for that, even if they fall short.
Well, one of the things that I hope people do is go ahead and put themselves out and get appointed to some boards. I hope the new mayor and the commission appoint people, and even go seek people, especially from the north end. I think it would be great to see that board look like South Miami.
Yep.
We've got a couple minutes left.
There's two board seats that opened up. Well, that will open up tonight, I guess. Okay, there's a planning board member a seat in Kewich and the 185 police plan, where there's a seat.
So if somebody wanted to be on a board, they should call. Who do they call?
Call Sally. Call Josh.
Who's Sally? The new mayor.
The new mayor.
Okay.
Am I going to have to call you Mrs. Mayor?
And Steve, some final words?
As exciting as this has been, I think the people of South Miami would probably be better served if they made some tweaks to their electoral system, move this to a time when everybody else is coming out, and maybe even think about single-member districts. I've drawn a plan. I think a year and a half ago, Grant asked me, because I've drawn plans for places all over the country. And it can be done to give every community an opportunity to have a seat at the table.
So that could be commission started, or it could be started by the residents by petition.
Either way, the commission could put it on the ballot, or people could start a initiative to gather signatures to force it onto the ballot.
So I hope the commission does that, and if they don't, I'll be happy to participate in moving that forward. And you're last on the list, right over here, sir.
I gotta echo what Steve just said about the single member districts here in the city of South Miami, to make sure that everybody is equally represented. You were talking about Bruce. I like Bruce. Bruce is a very nice man. I met him for the first time yesterday on election day. Good guy. I like him. I think that with the right guidance, he can do some damage here in the city of South Miami. Lena, I never had the pleasure of meeting Lena. I do know her consultant. He's a great guy. But I do believe that the citizens of South Miami spoke with the options they had, and the best woman won.
Great. We're going to be saying goodbye in about 30 seconds. I do want to thank Footworks of South Miami, who puts on some great events, all right? And Josh, by the way, has run over 100 marathons.
Yeah.
And in politics, he's pretty good, but as a coach, he's super. So my compliments to Josh on encouraging all those runners and walkers over so many years. So, folks, this is it for the day, and we're going to say goodbye. Have a great day.